Thank you so much for joining us on episode 8 on BroTalk, open dialogues about money, life, and mind. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. We really appreciate it. Please like this video, share this video. Today, we're going to talk about two things. Number one of the top wealthy habits or tips or tricks that the rich use, that they use to get rid of debt and also to build wealth. And we're going to talk about it and how you can do it. And number two, we're going to talk about 401ks. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they neutral? Should you use them or not? And what's the history behind them? And maybe there's a better alternative out there for you guys. Come guys, join us, listen in on this episode.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. So, let's talk about, first of all, this rule. When I heard about this rule, it sounds so simple, but it's intimidating. It's hard.
Yeah.
But according to these books that we have right here, right?
Yeah. Not sponsored yet, but
not sponsored yet, as you said, but hopefully soon. Right? These two books here. This rule, the 40% rule.
Right.
I don't know. Just run us through us by. Like, tell us, what is the 40% rule? How can you use it to get rid of debt or to build wealth? How have the rich used it? How have you used it in your own personal life? And maybe what are some alternatives if you can't do it immediately, right? Or what does that have to do with the rich mentality, poor mentality, discipline, all this stuff? So let's talk about it.
So basically the 40% rule, I remember the first time you talked to me about this, I was like, what? Like, say 40% of your check? Crazy. But the 40% rule is basically, it's very simple. Saving 40% of what you make, right? So as an example, you make $1,000 a week, you must save $400. You must put that apart every single time.
Wow.
And that's that shows a lot of discipline, right? But it also teaches you how to budget, and it's also like a growth thing, right? It teaches you growth mindset, right?
Okay.
Because obviously there's a reason behind this 40% rule. It's to eventually either save up money, get out of debt, put it into investments, whatever the case is, you must be disciplined. Now, it's very interesting. Not everyone knows about this rule, right? But let's say you're, as an example, in $30,000 in debt at the moment. That could be student loans, that could be car debt, that could be credit card debt, right? So many things. Now, is it ideal at that moment, you having so much debt to pay off, to start the 40%? Give or take, I guess, right? I would say not necessarily. You would want to idealistically get rid of your debt first, right?
Of course, that's the key.
40% is just like the title of it, meaning just how we view it. Obviously, this is the ideal way to save, but you can always start off from a lower percentage. You could do a 10%, you could do a 20%, you could do a 30%, whatever works for you at the moment. But obviously, you have to be strict. If you're only going to do 10%, you better make sure you do that 10%, right? Because eventually you want to get to that 20. You want to get to that 30. You want to get to that 40. Because either way, you do have debt. You still want to be able to save some type of money. So potentially maybe put into some investments that could create more wealth back towards you, right? We can use an example, right? So as an example, let's say you're making $1,000 a week. Like I mentioned earlier, that's about $400 weekly you're saving. Which equates to specifically $20,800 a year, but it's basically $21,000 a year. That's just making $1,000 a month. A week. Yeah. Which equates to $52,000 a year, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
So you're basically almost saving half of that money without even noticing. So I think it's a great way, or it's a first step per se, to start towards your financial freedom, which is what this podcast is about, right? Which is how to get there. But you must be disciplined to eventually have that growth mindset. But it also teaches you how to budget. So that's basically the overall of what the 40% rule is. I don't know if you want to expand into that a little bit more.
No, I definitely agree with you. And we could definitely talk about different techniques, because before I go into what I want to say, you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned how like this tactic or this technique can help you have a growth type of mindset right now. This all sounds good. Anyone hearing this is gonna be like, oh, Aaron, you're so smart. Obviously, but sounds too good to be true, right? I live paycheck to paycheck. So let's say someone, a fan of yours, like, obviously, if I could do that, I would have already been doing it, but I can't do it because I live paycheck to paycheck. I'm just curious, what is it that you would tell the person? Shut up.
Well, obviously, you know,
I'm poor. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I live in the projects. Like, I can't do that. I don't.
Well, don't give me the project example because there's
fine.
many, like, if you live in a project, you're getting some government help. So let's not get there. But
okay, bye.
Anyone else, right? Or even them included, right? Whatever. Obviously, you have to live through the mindset of not giving yourself excuses, right? Understanding that not all debt is bad, but there is bad debt as well.
What's the difference? I'm sorry. What's the difference in your opinion?
My opinion, well, obviously good debt is, hey, I need to pay for rent. I need to pay for groceries. General needs.
General needs, okay.
Things that you need to survive. And maybe you can allocate a little bit of money towards, like, maybe not right now, I would say, but maybe some things you want. But that would be at a very low percentage.
Okay.
But general needs is what good debt is, right? Maybe you need to have a car because of the area you live in. You need to travel, obviously insurance, all that. That's all good debt. That's not bad debt because obviously continuously paying this obviously helps your credit increase, right?
Which is true.
As long
as you're paying on time.
As long as you're paying on time. So these are things that you need to pay for to survive. Bad debt is, especially, you know, concentrating. Obviously, we want to include everyone, but at least in this conversation, concentrating on the young adults, right? Usually are the people that want to aim for financial freedom. If you're younger, great. If you're older, it's better later than ever. But you have to put aside, unfortunately, maybe fun activities at the moment, right? I believe in one of the podcasts before we talked about, maybe you could remind me, how if you want to be able to achieve certain things faster, you must sacrifice more.
Yeah, something like that. Right? We did mention something like that.
While
I forgot which episode, but I think we did mention something like that.
I forget the episode too. But at the same time, if you want to reach a goal faster, you must sacrifice more. If you want to enjoy more things at the moment, then you have to you'll sacrifice less in a sense, right?
Okay.
There's a quote, man, it's just coming to me now, which is amazing. It talks about how you must sacrifice your permanent pleasures.
Your permanent or temporary?
For your temporary pleasures, for your permanent dreams. Or for
okay.
Right?
That makes sense. Okay.
And not vice versa, basically.
Okay.
So I forgot.
So going back. So what is it you would tell the person?
I would tell them basically overall start at a lesser percentage. Start at a 10%.
What do they say? I still can't do it. I'm living paycheck to paycheck.
If you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's gotta be a way, especially if we do the math, that you have some type of money left over.
Yes.
Right? And if not, then we need to look into your debts, right? Let's say, as an example, it's credit card debt.
Okay.
We need to look into your credit card debt. We need to see what you're spending on. Break it down into categories. You don't need this, you need this. Okay. These are the things you need to spend. This is the number that I need to spend every month. Guaranteed. Does it match how much I make? Now, if it over goes how much you make, there's a problem. You're never going to be able to pay that debt off because you don't make enough money. You're constantly always paying interest. You're always behind. You either need to probably cut something off that you probably don't need, or you got to go make more money. Because the money that goes into your account has to at least match or overmatch whatever goes out. So we would have to look, break down, and see what your debt is, or let's say you can't even do it 10%, I would say, let's start getting rid of most of your debt then.
Mm-hmm.
Put all the money left over that you have after your general needs, put into your debt. Put into your debt. Keep putting into your debt. Continuously until you lower it. Because one famous person, PBD, Patrick Bet-David, said, a lot of people don't have money problems. And what I mean by this is they don't have, the problem is not spending it, the problem is managing it. They make enough money. They just don't know how to manage that money, right? You're only earning this amount of money, but you're living in this complex that you don't need to live in. You could live a little bit more frugal. You could lower your lifestyle, right? If you're a single man, as an example, you can live in a studio. You can live in a 1-bedroom. Sacrifice temporarily. You don't need to have these luxuries. Why do you need to have the latest car of the year? You can have a few years back, right? Or you could buy an old car and not have to make any car payments. All depends on the amount you're making and what can you sacrifice. And then depending on that and how you break things down, you're going to have money to spare, in a sense. We live in a first world country, talking about America. There's always ways to make money. Overtime, get a second job, So I'm basically saying figure it out.
You're basically saying figure it out, but your actual tactic is most people don't have the problem is not making money, the problem is the managing. And you're saying go back, look at your finances.
Yes.
And you know something? If you can't even do 40, do a lower number. And even then, you're basically saying if you can't do 40%, do a lesser number, but at least start at a lesser number that you can at least try
something that's
doable.
Yeah.
And start to use that money to get rid of your debt first. Because once you're debt free, you don't have to make minimum payments or monthly payments to debts anymore. Now you can either stay with that number that you started with or go at a higher number up to 40 to then start to save that money for investments. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something realistic. Because what I'm telling these people is that you could be flexible, right? 40% is just the name of the idealistic way to go about it. But you could do less as well. If you're in a war situation, you're not making as much money, you're in debt. But push yourself to do it. And then eventually you'll see while you apply this rule, even if it's at a lower percentage, you'll see how there's more money into your bank account. You start cutting off unnecessary purchases that you don't need. And then eventually you can move up to that 40% rule and everything just flows. Everything just flows.
Very interesting. What you're saying is reminding me of something in this book here, The Blueprint to Financial Freedom. Phenomenal book. I read it a couple times. In chapter 7, they talk about the 40% rule. And what the author put into the book, 𝗟𝗓𝗞𝗘, right? What he shows a chart. Again, it's in this book, in that book as well. And he shows a chart from 1913 all the way to 2012, 2013. So 100 year span. And it shows you what the top 1% of the top 1% in the world, what they did, top 10%, and then the rest of the world, how much money were they saving? And the top 1% of people in the world, what they did is that they saved 40% of their income yearly, consistently. Now, there was one year or one time period, which was, there was a couple years from 1930 to 1939 where they were not saving 40%. As a matter of fact, they weren't saving money at all during those years.
Okay.
But if we look at history, it's because that was during the Great Depression.
Right.
So what did these rich people do during the Great Depression? Very simple. They were spending because they already saved 40% the years previously.
Right.
Now that real estate and other assets, because the Great Depression came, all the assets price went down in value.
Plummet, yeah.
They're paying for these assets pennies on the dollars because they already saved so much money. I have the money to buy all these assets now, very on clearance, kind of on sale.
Yeah.
And then once the Great Depression happened, if you look at the chart, their savings patterns goes back up to 40% or higher. So basically, this is what the 1% of the rich do. They save 40% of their annual income, right? Now, of course, if you're a W-2 or a 1099,
it could be
a little different.
Yeah.
What I've learned from 𝗟𝗓𝗏 and from his books is basically if you have a W-2, a 1099, which means you're an independent contractor,
right,
you get your whole check, right? They don't take away taxes. So you're getting the full thing. So if you can, right, get 40% of your annual check. If you're getting a W-2 where they take away for taxes, try to get as close as you can to 40%, right? But let's say you can, as you mentioned, do a lower number, but then figure out either you got to cut out more expenses or you got to find a double income, another skill, or try to make more money, which I think we're going to talk about in another episode.
Yeah.
Right. Now, one quick hack that I learned a long time ago, right, is if you want to save your 40%, we all know whatever. Don't spend money on stupid things, clothing, movie theaters.
Sounds simple, but
it's actually not so simple. You're right.
Simple, but yeah. But in layman's terms, it's very simple.
So right to do that. But another hack that I learned is if you're in debt, like really bad debt, and I don't mean good debt, like
what's
debt
that number?
No, it's not a specific number. It's just bad debt. Like credit card debt is horrible. Student loan debt is not good, unless maybe you took out the student loan to get a very high-paying career. Then maybe it's worth it. But then again, it could be controversial. We could talk about some other time. But let's say most debt is bad. Let's say that most debt is bad.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So if you have debt, you shouldn't be focusing. So if you have bad debt, you should not be focusing on saving money for investments. No. So for example, let's say every month money is coming out of your account to your retirement accounts, your 401k, your Roth IRA, your traditional IRA, these very popular retirement accounts. Temporarily stop. Don't stop putting money into those accounts. Instead, use that money, save that money, try to get to your 40%. And one great way is to stop putting money into your retirement accounts, right? Because once you put them in there, you can't use them.
Yeah.
Use that money now. Use that money.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Mix it together and then throw it and get rid of your debt. Because most of these debts are very expensive. Student loan debt is high interest rates. Credit card debt's like minimum 18-19%.
Yeah, I would say 20-22 now.
Depending what credit card goes, 20, 24, 25, 22%.
Yeah.
So stop putting money to your retirement accounts. Take that money and start throwing it at that debt. Now, what Jerry says and what you and I have done, and you can talk about this, is what we've done is that, so I don't have debt, right? So what we did is, for example, we saved as much money as we can. We save as much money as we can. We put it together. We take that money, let's say it's the 40%, right, that we saved. Then we open up a whole life insurance policy. Whole life, it's not universal, and it's not a term or index whole life insurance policy. It's not those. Only one whole life insurance policy. You put the money in there, right? Now, there's something, and I know I'm going on a tangent here. I just want people to know this. Okay. The whole life insurance policy is not an investment. It's only a tool, but it's not an investment, actually. Investments, that means that investments are risky. No matter how good or how conservative or non-conservative the investment is, investments always have some type of risk, either a lot or a little bit. A whole life insurance policy, there's no risk because all you're doing is you're putting your money and you're putting it into this private account, right? And your money grows from 3 to 5% every single year without stopping, and it never goes down, never. So you take your money, you put it in there. Okay, you're $40,000, you're $30,000. I think you said $30,000 debt, right?
As an example, yeah.
Let's say you save that. You put it in there. Great. Within a week or less, you can borrow out that money, and now pay off your debt. So what did you just do? Your money is now working in two places. Because scenario A is you take the 30,000, you just get rid of your 30, and you get rid of your debt. Okay, you got rid of your debt, fantastic. But where's the money? Do you have the money? If let's say Amex, I have an Amex card, and I have 30,000 debt, and I throw the debt there, I'm debt free, right?
You're debt free.
But where's the money?
There.
Amex has it. I don't have it.
It's gone.
But if you take the money, you first put in the policy, it's growing for you, and you can borrow it out. And even once you borrow it out, it's still growing. It doesn't stop. then you get rid of your debt. Where's the money? And
it's in two places at once.
In two places at once. So I don't know. I'm like, maybe
it's like
you
kill two birds with one stone, basically.
Correct.
And I remember I did something similar. I don't know if you remember this time when I was trying to get rid of my $20,000 debt that I had, which was credit card debt as well, which was bad debt. But at the time, I didn't have $10,000 to put into the account, but I was still saving in the account, and I was still saving separately as well.
Correct.
Into another bank account because I didn't even want to see the money. So I was treating that account like if it were. And I remember I tried to put that money into the life insurance, but that's a little bit more complicated because you need to open it with a certain amount of money and stuff like that. But we'll get into the details. But what I did is I grabbed that money that I saved basically, and I paid it all off using the 40% rule. Actually, I think I was using more than the 40% rule.
Oh, wow. Like 50, 60?
Yeah. Around that time. Or what I was doing actually, which could be something people follow, my overtime money, all the overtime that I was making, because all the overtime that I was working at the time, I did math, right? Okay. Me doing 40 hours, I earn this amount of money. Whatever comes after that amount of money, I'm saving.
Don't even look at it.
Don't even look at it.
Put it away, yeah.
And some weeks it was $400, some weeks it was $900. It just depended on the amount of overtime I was working. Sometimes if I didn't use that amount of money that I'm using because it's not the overtime money, I would, okay, I'm not using this money, let me add it more. And I was able to get rid of $10,000 debt in 3 months.
Yeah. Oof.
So
some people, it might take them years.
It might take them years.
But you did in 3 months.
Right. And that's even with interest like hitting me.
Accumulating, yeah, of course.
Right. For the people that take longer, you're not paying $10,000.
So wait, so let me see if I understand. So you opened up a whole life insurance policy.
I opened up a whole life insurance.
You're putting...
Well, I'm still currently doing it to this day.
No, yeah, you're still doing this tactic. But what you just mentioned, you opened up a policy. Obviously, you didn't have 10,000, so you put less...
I put less money
into that account.
And I mostly started putting money into that account.
Into this account, but then also on another bank account.
The
overtime.
I was putting overtime money.
And then once they both grew, you put them together and you threw it in there.
Right, exactly.
Got you.
So, and then at the same time, while this money was growing, I was saving up money on the side as well. And obviously that could be used as emergency money too. We never know what happens in life. But like you said before, with my account that I have in life insurance, my money was still growing and I was able to borrow it. It's basically having your own bank.
Correct, which is called? The second word is banking. What's the first word?
Oh, velocity?
The other word. Infinite.
Infinite banking.
Yeah, you're close.
Off guard. Yeah. Infinite banking. But yeah, it's basically having your own bank.
Yeah.
Because if another Great Depression or recession happens, it wouldn't really affect.
It wouldn't. You mean
the life insurance?
No, it doesn't affect the life insurance.
The banks,
of course,
but it wouldn't affect the life insurance. And if you have your money in there, you can always take it out. Plus, it has a whole bunch of benefits as well,
like a death benefit.
Like a death benefit, right? We're talking about the living benefits, which is like your money continuously growing. Obviously, none of us want us to die, but if you want to set others up just in case something might happen to you, they can get money off of it and you just don't go out with nothing.
Correct. Yeah, like your family members or stuff like that.
Exactly.
But if people are listening to this, they want to know when you open up a whole life insurance policy, if you want the death benefit to be bigger, the first payment you put into it has to be a bigger payment.
Yes, has to be a bigger payment.
A bigger payment. You don't have to. It doesn't have to.
It depends on your financials at the moment, but it is definitely better to put a bigger number, and you can have more than one eventually as well.
Correct. I think I read an article that says Joe Biden has 6 whole life insurance policies.
Really?
I'm telling you, the rich. I learned this from 𝗟𝗓𝗞𝗘 and also someone called 𝗟𝗜𝗄𝗕. They're 2 different financial gurus that they actually know each other. But interesting enough, they say you want to study and see how do the banks make money? Where are the banks putting their money? Whatever the banks are doing, you want to do the same thing, because what you're doing, as you mentioned, you're creating your own bank here. You're creating your own wealth, your own economy, right? Where the money keeps coming back to you. And interesting enough, banks have two types of tiers. I'm not going to go over both, but just the first one. Banks have something called a top tier, their first tier, which means where they put the majority of their assets, or where do they put the majority of their money, right? Where is their money being, right? Where are banks putting their money? And banks actually store and grow most of their money and hold life insurance policies. I found a quote in 2008, according to FDIC, banks are the largest purchasers of cash value life insurance in the US. Why? Because it brings stability, protection, and growth during unpredictable times. Banks buy this because it offers benefits that not even the banks can offer.
Right.
Right? That's why. So,
which is insane, but yeah, continue your point.
Banks are putting most of their money, well, in reality, most of their money are the people's money, right?
Yeah.
Because they take your money, right? They take it, and they can do something called fractional lending, right? And they basically, if you deposit money into the bank, they're taking your money and they're loaning it to 10 other people,
right? And
they're making profit off all that. And then once they make their profit, they take their profit or the rest of their money and they buy tons of life insurance policy. So the banks, people who own the banks, these millions and billions of dollars are growing at a 3 to 5% every year. It ain't going down. And then they're loaning it out to their customers.
Right.
It's a win-win, baby.
It's a win-win, because then they charge you this 20% interest.
Yes.
But you're going to make me more money. Once I get that profit, I'm just going to redo and recycle whatever I just did.
And I'm going to buy more life insurance.
I'm going to buy another life insurance account with the profit I made off of you.
That's what they're doing.
Banks rarely ever lose.
Yeah, they have to do some very dumb decisions to lose. Like what was the name of that bank in California?
I know exactly.
Silicon Valley Bank.
Yes.
They made a lot of risky bets and they actually lost a lot of money.
Right.
And they went bankrupt, right? But it's interesting. The products that banks offer to clients, to their customers, like mortgages and car loans and CDs, the people who own the banks, people who run these banks, they're not using these products. These products were created for middle-class people to keep them hooked to the bank. Because trust me, if everyone knew how to do this, the banks wouldn't exist. Yeah. Because everyone has their own economy. Everyone has their own banking system. They just have to go into their policy and they can take out a loan against themselves and they're not in a rush to pay themselves back. And once they pay themselves back, guess what? That money was always growing and they can reuse that money again for other stuff.
Yeah, it's insane.
It really is.
And the crazy part of it is this is only the first step, right? We obviously got into a little bit more. You could put it into life insurance, right? The 40% rule and everything. But this is a very, and I believe we've spoken about this before, it's a very traditional way on how to do things, right? It's a very boring way in a sense,
to make money?
Or
build wealth and get rid of debt.
To build wealth and get rid of debt, right? Because many people might look into, obviously we haven't gotten into what we could do with the money that we put into life insurance and put it somewhere else and make investments off that. But this is just a concept basically of saving money.
That's really it, yes.
Right. Once you master that, you put it into life insurance and it goes from there. But it's about having that discipline, about being able to do it. This is not like some Forex or crypto type stuff that you need to study, that you need to be looking at the stocks and see when they're going up and down. This is just, hey, be disciplined, save, do this rule, then put it into life insurance, and then whatever's next follows.
Yes.
So this is very, in a sense, I call it traditional just because I couldn't think of another word, but it's a very boring way to do it, but effective.
Yes.
Very effective. And it's been effective since forever.
Since the last, I think, 200 years or something like that.
Right. So it's why not do it? But
and it's actually not. This part is not so complicated. It really isn't. And I'm just going to show. If people are interested in getting the book, this is the book right here. That's the book. Right here's the front. Here's the back. Phenomenal book. Right. If you guys can, also click on the link in the description.
Oh, yes.
Click on that link if you want to meet 𝗟𝗓𝗞𝗘, the author, look at the companies, get the books. They're very cheap. They're a couple dollars each.
Yeah, he has a website called wealthdynamics.com.
Correct.
And just
go and just check it out. Just click on the link, mention our names, and just try to get more information. And listen, if you don't want to do it, or no one's going to force you to do it. But I'm telling you, this 40% rule and the open up a whole life insurance policy, especially like if you have kids. I always say, especially if you have kids, you should at least open one up for a death benefit. Because if anything were to happen, your kids are taken care of.
Exactly.
Like you have one for your son.
I have one for my son. Like if I die, I'm not gonna say the amount, but if I die, he gets a certain amount of money.
Nice. How much?
He gets a certain amount of money, which I don't want to die.
Of course not.
But at least if I happen to die, I will feel safe knowing that I left something for him. I didn't just leave him my $4,000 in my bank account.
Or you didn't leave debt. There's people that leave debt.
And then it passes on, right?
God, yes.
Oh, fuck.
He's gonna, when he's 18, my father was $2 million. Oh God, I'm gonna. He works at Key Food. I'm gonna need more overtime. No, he's not gonna work at Key Food.
Right.
No, he's got a better future.
100%.
So I guess what we're also really saying is, other than the 40%, open up a whole life insurance policy.
Yeah,
open
100%.
that. And talking about what to open and what not to open.
Yes.
Let's talk about the 401k.
Great bridge.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So let's talk about the 401k.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about the 401k? It's very popular.
It's very popular.
I think almost all employers offer this. So what can you say about the 401k? Is it good in your view? Yes, no, why? What do you want to say?
Well, throughout the studying that we've done, right, and the conversation that we've had, obviously throughout these books, we have a negative way of looking at the 401k.
Yes.
Right. Why? Because
it's the devil.
It's the devil, right? Many people might ask, like, where did the 401k come from, right? Well, basically came from an IRS code, right? Yeah. This guy called 𝗟𝗓𝗞𝗘, which was a benefits consultant in the late 1970s, early 1980s, decided to create this retirement plan, and which eventually he later regretted because of just the way it's evolved, right? And it's just become a little more complicated than what it was.
Well, a lot more complicated.
Sorry. And there's good and bad, Sid, right? I don't believe there's a lot of good, but there is good to it. There is good to it, right? Being a little not pessimistic, being more optimistic about how a retirement plan could be in a sense good, meaning like all the money that you put in it, it's not getting taxed, right? So when you do your taxes every year, you put in your taxes that you put in a certain amount of money into your 401k, and you're not going to get taxed.
Yes.
Right? I mean, after 59 and a half years old,
you can take it out.
You can take it out. You're still going to get taxed, but those are the cons. But sticking to the pros. Also, I don't know if all employers do this. I know some employers match whatever you put, right? But that's also like at a certain percentage as well. If you put your whole check inside, I don't think they're going to match your whole check, but
probably not. Yeah.
If you put like $20, $100 in every time you get a check, they're going to match it, which is a pro, I guess, in a sense. I remember when I first got this job, they offered me that, but I was already at the time learning about this, so I have $0 in my 401k, which is a great thing for me. And it automatically gets deducted out of your paycheck, right? Whenever you do it. There isn't a lot of good to it, but in my eyes, but there is some good to it. I think there's mostly bad, and I think you would agree on this as well. Why? Because not only are there investment choices that are limited
in a 401k,
there's also penalties if you decide to take out that money before the age of 59 and a half. So whatever money you put inside, not that you can't take out, you can, but you're going to suffer penalties, heavy tax, and you're even going to get taxed afterwards if you take it out after 59 and a half. And if you're a 24-year-old guy like me, you're not going to want to wait
till you're 59.
Till I'm 59, more than 30 years to finally take out the money I'm there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm like, for me, maybe for you as well, this might be subjective, but at the same time, it is covered with objective facts.
Mm-hmm.
Having a 401k is a poor man's mentality.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how so?
Reason why? Because why do you want to use that money later?
Mm-hmm.
Why not use that money now?
Mm-hmm.
The point is to have that money and to be able to use it at the moment to pay off debt, into investments. Why leave it for later? Later is the time that you want to be financially free, or is it now? So if you're a guy that, wants to live your life in a sense, working, and this is what you want to do, and happy, and not make another income until your retirement, it's great for you. But if you have bigger plans in life, I don't think it's the way.
Okay, just let's stop 1 second. I'll leave. Just call me. Give me 1 second. Don't worry. I'm gonna continue. Don't worry. We'll just cut it. Give me 1 second. What happened?
I hit the bathroom.
How badly?
Like an hour.
All right. So go use the bathroom now. Maybe 20 more minutes. So go now. Go. You sure? You sure you can handle it?
Yeah.
So go now. You sure? Okay. All right. Okay. So, all right. Don't worry. We'll just cut that.
Yeah.
So, all right. And then I'm going to continue. I'm going to say, okay.
Yes, I ended up saying, it's not the way to go.
It's not the way to go. So then you're basically saying that you wouldn't advise the people that work underneath you to open one or to have one?
No.
But do some of them have one already?
Of course, yeah. I believe almost all my coworkers
have one. Okay.
Have one, and I've talked to them a little bit about it.
But they're not ready to hear it.
But they're not ready to hear it, or a lot of people need to see you succeed first before they start to listen to you. Unfortunately.
Well, we're definitely building our wealth.
We are, but they want to see more.
They want to see more. Okay.
Which is fine. What do you think about the 401k?
So I would definitely. So the interesting thing is that, well, first of all, the 401k, as you mentioned,
the
IRS created this section, the 401 section, right?
Okay.
Then this guy 𝗟𝗜𝗞𝗘 comes, and he's the guy that made it popular. But his whole mentality was right. His purpose. He wasn't trying to make the 401k the ultimate retirement plan or savings plan for the employees. No, he was just trying to find another supplemental retirement plan, another way that employees can save money for their retirement. But what happened was that when companies realized what 𝗟𝗏𝗘's innovation or his way of thinking, once they saw this, they capitalized on it. Employers and companies, they were like, "Oh wow,
it's a great idea.
This is a great idea. We get a tax break, and we're going to save money." Because back in the day, most employers offer pensions where it's like, "Listen, if you work for me 30, 40 years, I'm going to make sure that when you retire, every single month you're going to have $5,000 in your bank account." As an example, right? I'm the employer, so when you retire 30, 40 years. I need to make sure as the employer or as a company that I have enough money in my company to make you, to give you a paycheck every single month until you pass away.
Right.
So I need to make sure of that. So once they saw what 𝗟𝗏𝗘 came up with, which again, he regrets how the 401k evolutionized because that wasn't his plan.
Right.
His plan was like, I'm just trying to find another way to help the employees. I wasn't really trying to help out the employers. I wasn't really trying... Because what happens is this: the companies now shift they're shifting the importance, right, of retirement planning from the company now to the person. So they're basically telling the person, okay, now it's up to you. Now it's your responsibility.
Right.
It's not my responsibility anymore, right? I'm out of that. I don't have to give you anything when you retire. You need to take from your own paycheck that I pay you. You got to put away your own money, right? Now, of course, what companies also did to incentivize people to start to do the 401k is like, I'm going to match you, right? And a lot of companies, like they'll match you to up to 10%, 5%, whatever. There's like different things that the companies will match you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see it as free money, right? Because the 401k, you can contribute, I think up to 50, you can contribute up to $20,000 a year. And then after you're like 50 or 55, you can go like up to $25,000, $26,000, $27,000 a year. Every year they kind of change the numbers a little bit, so it could be a little bit off. So you can put a nice chunk of your money into the 401k, and they'll match you up to a certain point. They'll match you. It's like free money, right? Now, 𝗟𝗓𝗏 doesn't see it as free money, but if you read the book, you could see why, right? And so then the 401k got really popular. So now these companies are like, this is not my problem anymore. This is your problem. The thing is that most people are not literate financially, so they don't know so much about this.
Yeah.
And now all the retirement responsibility is up to the person. Most people are not going to have enough money that when they retire, their 401k is not big enough. Right. Again, the purpose of the 401k was not to just retire off of that. It was just like another little nice little account, right? On top of your pension.
On top of your pension.
That's it.
So once they capitalize on it,
things went down, right?
That's why sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, tell me.
That's why most pensions are non-existent or they're really low.
Yes.
And then, but we gave you a 401k.
Yeah, and you could put as much money up to your limit, and we matched you.
With a majority of people having struggling managing income issues.
Correct. So it's like, if you can't even manage your month to month and your paycheck to paycheck, how are you going to start thinking about your retirement?
Exactly. While most people in the past were like, when I retire, I'm going to get this amount of money.
I just got to put in my time, and that's it.
Put in my time. Now it's putting your time, but also be responsible.
Now, but to be fair, we do have more access to information today. The internet, ChatGPT, we have more books compared to like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, right? So we do have that. But as they say, even though there's more information,
that doesn't mean
you're going to know it, though.
Right. You have to study, you have to look, or you have to be, at least be taught to you.
And you got to find the right person. Yeah. So there's still this pros and there's cons, right? But also more bad things about the 401k that people don't realize is, number one, 401k, people make this mistake too. 401k, Roth IRA, all these things, even the whole life insurance policy, as I mentioned, these are not investments. These are vehicles, or these are tools that you use to invest into something. So a 401k, you're putting money into the 401k, right? But the 401k itself is not the investment that grows, right? The money that you put into the 401k, that money you then put into a fund, a mutual fund, or stocks and bonds and Wall Street, right? The thing is that most companies, when they offer you the 401k, they don't give you so many options, right? Whatever options the company gives you, that's the only options you have to invest your 401k money. And I think most of the time the max is like 20 companies, or 20 funds or 20 companies, right? So first of all, you don't have so much options. That's number one. Right. The fees are crazy to manage your 401k. On average in America, you could pay on average, people in America pay 2.22%. So almost 2.25% yearly on your 401k. And I have an interesting example. Okay. Right, but it can go anywhere from 0.2 to 5% every year on fees. Wow! Right, just to have the 401k. Just to have it. As you mentioned, the penalties if you take out the money early enough. Right. Also, it's a hassle and it's complicated. If you want to take out money out of a 401k, it becomes a whole thing. My father went through this, and it was a whole hassle to take it out. The whole life insurance policy, you get it between 1 and 2 days, and it's much easier. And also, just because you're putting money into the 401k, and that money in the 401k is going into these mutual funds or these stocks and bonds, it's still Wall Street. It's the stock market. Stock market goes up and down, and down. So your money is never really growing continuously. It's like up, then down, up and down. But of course, history does show that on average, you will make money, 7 to 10% off, right? You will make a profit, right? But now what's interesting is this. So there's 3 types of fees for a 401k. Investment fees, right? Administration fees, and individual service fees. So for example, the investment fees is basically, what that really means is like, okay, we're taking your money, do you want us to put it in an active fund or a passive fund? Which means basically,
And if we do that for you, we're charging you.
we're charging you. Whichever one you want. The active fund is more expensive because active fund just means that there's people on Wall Street that are actively like investing for you.
It is actively going up and down.
And passively is like, it's like a computer or the technology is investing for you. So it's a little bit cheaper.
Gotcha.
But just to put your money into these funds, they're already charging you every year. Then there's administration fees. So basically, if you want to know how much your 401k is going up or down, like your profit and losses, the accounting, the legal, the record keeping, all these legal things, these book things, they're charging you fees every single year just to do that for you, right? And then if you ever want to like take out a loan against your 401k, or you want to do a rollover, I'm not going to go into detail what this is. They're also going to charge you fees to do this. So everything is a fee. So I found this amazing example. Let's say you put $10,000 one time into the 401k, and then every year you're putting $5K, right? Every year. But your annual fee is 2% or 2.22%, right? Every year. And you do this for 30 years, right? Now, at the end of 30 years, you just put in $5K, that's it, every year, with the fee of 2.22%, right? After 30 years, you will have $360,000, $497.08.
Okay.
Not bad. Actually, that's actually not pretty. That's not bad, actually. Just putting $5K a year for 30 years, right? Now,
wow.
$360K after 30 years. Well, you know, but that's with fees. Now, if there was no fees and you put $5K every year for 30 years and you put a $10,000 initial investment, just like the same thing the first one, you will come out with $548,426.48. Wow. So
almost double.
Almost. So basically, the difference during those 30 years, only that 2% per year came out to be $187,929.40. Almost $200,000 in fees alone during the 30 years. And that's only a 2.22% per year. Imagine that.
That's amazing. So, and then you're basically making 200 more grand.
You could have made 200
more grand if you had it into life insurance.
Basically, yes.
Because you're not getting charged these fees.
There's no annual fees. I mean, if you do take a loan out your whole life insurance policy, the company will charge you interest.
Yeah, and then you have an outstanding loan, but we'll get it.
Yeah, but it's not like this.
But it's nothing compared to this. It's not like, we're charging you penalties or
a 2.22% annual administration investment fees. None of that stuff. So I would say, in conclusion, the 401k is not a good thing, right? It's not a good thing. Most people are not going to have enough money to retire off of that once they retire. Too many fees, too many complications, and the alternate is better. It's easier, it's quicker, and you don't lose money with it. And there's no penalties and all that stuff. So why wouldn't you do the whole life insurance policy? It's so much better, right? It's so much better. All you need to do, right? Get rid of your debt, however that is. And we spoke a little bit about it. And we could do another episode where we go into just how to get rid of your debt.
Details, numbers, stuff like that. Yeah.
Just get rid of your debt. Use the 40% rule, or as close as you can. Save as much money, get rid of your debt, then keep saving. And guess what? Put that into a whole life insurance policy, growing 3 to 5%. You can borrow out against it to get rid of your debt or to put into investments. You know, buy more whole life insurance, buy physical gold, buy real estate, right? There's so many things you can do with it. So it's like people don't have excuses to have a 401k now.